Now, I know we have a podcast to start, but I just want to address my fan base, my very large fan base, much larger than this podcast, to be fair. But
yes.
I just want to say, I know there's a new Borderlands game out, okay? I know. I'll get to it when I get to it. I've got other things to do right now.
Can I talk about Borderlands for a second?
Sure, talk about Borderlands, Nathan.
I think Tales from the Borderlands, the first time around, was one of the best stories in that setting ever. I think it was fantastic. I think it probably is my favourite Borderlands IP thing.
I think that's a reasonable take.
I do not give a hoot about the new one.
See, I'm kind of with you.
For some reason, I don't know why. Maybe it's just the marketing hasn't reached out to me. To be honest, I've barely seen any marketing. The most marketing I actually see for it is on my dashboard on the Xbox.
I think there is reasons for that. I think it's just... Well, I know why. It's because it's written by the same people as Borderlands 3. And that does not promise me confidence in their ability to write a Tales game.
So that's why you know you're not interested in it.
Yeah, and also the characters just look less interesting and the setting looks less compelling. It just doesn't look as good.
Well, remember the people who made Halo 5 also made Halo Wars.
So it's just a matter of chance.
Yeah, could be great. Who knows? That's all I have to say on Borderlands, by the way. Borderlands segment over. Done. In the thumbnail.
No, the intro's playing right now. We're good. So, Nathan, I've structured my notes. This time I have sections for us to go through.
Sections?
We're trying out some different things, you know? We're trying to add a little bit more structure to this podcast. We'll see how it goes.
We're trying to put a skeleton into this blob.
Yes. Well, my first segment is Kyle hasn't watched a thing, but Nathan has.
The famous never ever spoken structure, but always present structure.
Always there. So I have a couple of things. There might be more, there might be less, but the first one I have on here is Doctor Who. There was a certain Doctor Who finale that happened. Doctor
Who. Oh my goodness gracious me, Doctor Who. Well, this podcast, back in its early days, spoke about Doctor Who. We spoke about Doctor Who quite a bit. I can't actually remember where we left off in our Doctor Who discussions, except to know that we spoke in depth about how the Jodie Whittaker era has been very rocky.
We did a special in the first season of Jodie Whittaker, and I haven't watched the 2 seasons since then.
Well, you've not missed much.
So I've heard.
The Jodie Whittaker era just finished. Chris Chibnall era, technically, he was the showrunner. Jodie Whittaker was the actor portraying the lead role. Is over, and it feels like it barely got started. It feels like Jodie Whittaker just picked up Doctor Who last year. And I know we've had a 2-year pandemic, production was halted, we got a year where it was just a couple of specials, a bit like the end of David Tennant's era, where like his final year was just an Easter special and a Christmas special where he regenerated into Matt Smith. So he got 3 seasons and in a year of just 2 specials, that was it. Which is kind of similar to Jodie Whittaker. Not a mirror image, but relatively similar, where just sometimes you just get specials over and no actual seasons.
Well, isn't there some crazy stat that she's actually the longest running Doctor at this point?
So I'd heard that too. I think that's a weird... I haven't looked into it, I have not fact checked this, I've just heard it. It sounds like no. It sounds like no. Someone can look it up. I'm sure I could probably look it up right now and then we could edit it the downtime for me to type it. I can't be bothered. She has been here for a while and they've done so little with it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Her final, Jodie Whittaker's final, Chris Chibnall's final, more to the point. I think if there was, you know, which one was the bigger threat, it was definitely Chris Chibnall. We have lost a doctor and we have lost a showrunner. We have gained a new doctor and we've gained an old showrunner.
Well, have we? Have we gained a new doctor?
Well, we have gained a new doctor. We have. At the end of this special, Jodie Whittaker was forced to regenerate under very strange circumstances. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, she was fine and then she wasn't fine in the space of 5 minutes. It wasn't like a, we know where this is leading. It was just like another day in the fleet and then, whoa, regeneration. Which some people, I've actually, some friends that I've spoke to over the years have always actually liked that. They always wanted like a regeneration to happen mid-season, like middle of a story, middle of a season, not a special, just running, oh, I've regenerated, keep going with the story.
I think there's contractual reasons that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's what I always responded with. There was lots of reasons why that'll never really happen, but this kind of feels relatively close to it because it wasn't like a built-up regeneration. I mean, outside of the show, it was a built-up regeneration, but in the world, it wasn't like Bad Wolf, Four Nox and all that. Trenzalore from Matt Smith. It just kind of happened. We have been given the new 14th Doctor of the era, David Tennant.
Yep, that's... Like, if anyone was trying not to spoil that online, they ultimately failed, because I learned that immediately. There was no hiding that. I think it was on the news, for God's sake.
Yeah, in British media, who the new Doctor is like who the new James Bond is, and it kind of goes beyond plot spoiler protection. It's just a matter of cultural interest, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's like, we don't care about saving it for the audience. We just, like, that's the announcement out there, this person's the Doctor. Because we knew David Tennant was coming back already because they were going to be filming stuff. They had to do a big press release. Like, we've known David Tennant was coming back for a while now, you know?
Yes.
We just didn't know if he was going to be coming back to join Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor, who we potentially could have been the 14th Doctor, or if David Tennant was going to take over from Jodie and then Ncuti was going to take over from David.
I was going to say, I think they're cowards for not having him regenerate into Jodie Whittaker's outfit.
So this is why I knew, this is why I was so certain that Jodie was going to regenerate into David Tennant. I knew she was going to regenerate into David Tennant because if there's any previous Doctor who would do and look good wearing women's clothing, it would be David Tennant, right? And I was like, okay, right, this is why they'll do it, because David Tennant doesn't mind getting up in that outfit.
And it's not like her outfit is, like, super feminine or anything, right?
Even if it was, David Tennant would probably have done it.
Sure, yeah.
But then
it would just be a little bit of a gag, and then he would change clothes.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the Doctors usually do.
Yeah, exactly, you know? And then instead he just had the whole clothes, which says to me, like, why did the clothes regenerate as well? Like, that's like
it doesn't make any sense.
This is going to be like a lore point that's going to haunt the franchise forever now on YouTube videos and like discussion blogs. Like, they've just started it now.
Well, I think I did hear actually that when the first Doctor regenerated into the second Doctor, his clothes also changed, but every single time since then it's just been the actor has changed.
It was the 60s, you know? Like,
yeah.
And people, you know what? Most people haven't seen that. I've seen all the regenerations.
And also, they hadn't established the rules yet. It was the first time.
Yeah, and like there's the whole theory about the Doctor 2B, because when the second Doctor regenerates into the third Doctor, when he steps out of the TARDIS, he's wearing different clothes from what Patrick Troughton was wearing when John Pertwee falls out of the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. So clothes are different, but you don't actually see him change wardrobe.
Right.
So people think that between the second and third Doctor there was like a Doctor that we never ever saw.
Interesting.
And it's like it's the Doctor 2B, you know, Patrick Troughton would be 2A, someone would be 2B, and then we go to the third Doctor. And it's this weird, like,
it's a
fringe
classic conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's a fringe theory, you know, it's the bending bullet, you know. But I think there's some interest to it. I think that's something that fan fiction exploits quite a bit.
Anyway, I want to get back to the actual Doctor Who that came out, because
I
don't think we ever answered it. Did you like it? Did you like this episode?
I wouldn't say I liked it. Did I like it? I thought it was fine, I guess. Like, it was probably like, it was just a brain dead romp, which I guess, given that the show, when it started with the Chris Chibnall era, went so hard into trying to teach the audiences, and we spoke about at the time that was
Rosa Parks episodes.
Yep, we spoke about at the time how Doctor Who had historically tried that already, and no one liked it, so they stopped doing that. And ultimately, when they just done brain dead stuff, that's what led to the show being cancelled. But I think that this final was them also agreeing that people didn't want all the Rosa Parks stuff in the way that they'd done it, and just went for silly space adventure, but they went too far the other way. It's like they're, instead of doing a balancing act, they're just walking across the seesaw balancing beam from one end to the other, and they're not trying to stand in the middle. And I mean, you know, for an hour and a half of television on a Sunday night or whatever it was, I watched it live. I ordered some food in. It was nice. Seeing David Tennant then was happy. I like seeing the Daleks. I like seeing the Cybermen. It was nice seeing all the old Doctors. They brought back what's his name? He played Filch in Harry Potter, and he played the First Doctor in Peter
Walder Frey. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Walder Frey, Game of Thrones, exactly. They brought him back. They brought back Colin Baker, Peter Davidson, Paul McGann, Sylvester McCoy. There's 2 of the old companions from the 5th and 7th Doctor runs in the episode, and they gave them moments with the old Doctors.
It's nice, I guess, if you've ever watched Classic Who, which I have to assume 90% of the audience hasn't at this point.
Well, you're probably right. But there was good emotional beats there, you know, for a fan like me. Even, I haven't watched much of the old stuff, to be honest with you, but they'd done it well, and it resonated with me, even though I have, maybe unlike most people, I have actually seen some of those episodes. The Master, you know, he's actually been quite a good Master. He was maybe misallocated sometimes, but in this episode, broadly speaking, he was quite good. He felt quite mastery. I feel like this show didn't do much. This entire era didn't do really much to kind of convey old friends turned enemies. They felt like just 2 people that hadn't really met before.
I mean, my main concern is, did Yaz ever do anything?
She carried the Doctor into the TARDIS after the Master done a thing to her that made her regenerate.
Cool.
They had ice cream together on the roof of the TARDIS. Graham comes back.
I saw that, yeah, but not Ryan.
They could. He's busy. But you know, it was so stupid how they brought him back. So
I saw he has like a former Doctor's therapy group or something.
Oh yeah, no, that's just how the episode ends. That's just like an end of episode thing. That's not a part of the plot, and really. But how they bring Graham back is like the Daleks are drilling beneath Earth to cause all the volcanoes to erupt. And there's a defector Dalek that tells the Doctor about it. The Doctor goes down to speak to the defector Dalek. The real Daleks find out, and they they kill the other Dalek, and they capture the Doctor. But then they break out, blah, 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 blah. Then the Doctor comes back later in the episode to drop off Ace down in the volcano with a baseball bat to keep an eye on the Daleks for some reason.
Okay.
And as she's creeping around the caves of this volcano, Graham shows up. And they make no effort to explain how he got there. He has psychic paper, and he tries to use it on Ace to sort of, you know, fool his way as to why he's got a right to be there. Like she does, but she can see right through it because she travelled with the Doctor and she knows what psychic paper looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But the episode just sort of runs with it and doesn't make any effort to establish how Graham got there in the first place. It's not like it opened up underneath Sheffield. There's no volcanoes in Britain.
Mm-hmm. Just Bradley Walsh wanted to be in the finale.
Apparently. Blatantly, apparently. John Bishop was here for 2 seconds, didn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
They just sort of wrote him out really early on in the episode to bring him back later for no reason, really. They really wanted to focus in on the Doctor and Yaz, I guess, but then also bringing in Ace and Keegan from old Doctor Who really sort of got in the way of sharing Yaz Doctor screen time, because they're also trying to... It was really trying to do a lot. It was trying to do a lot. And I think it sort of succeeds in some areas and sort of fails in others. I would watch it just so you could see you've rounded out the era, even if you've not seen other... Like, you could watch this episode quite safely, never having seen a single episode of Jodie Whittaker's tenure, and just get it.
Anyway, I wanted to move on to the next thing, because probably more people have seen it than Doctor Who, no offence. But,
yes, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, I haven't seen it, but it's the newest rock fantabular movie, Black Adam, baby.
Black Adam, baby. Oh, Black Adam. Well, where do we start with Black Adam? What do you think Black Adam is? You haven't seen it yet. What do you think it is?
I mean, based on the trailer, from what I've seen, The Rock flies around a city somewhere in the Middle East and fights the Not Justice League.
Kandak, the country of Kandak, fighting the Justice Society, the JSA,
yes.
Justice Society of America. Yeah, Black Adam. What a film. You know what? I liked it more than I liked the final of Doctor Who.
Well, okay. Well, that's something.
It's a perfectly good DC movie, if I can put it like that.
What a bar to cross.
What a bar to cross, yeah. I think that it reasonably strikes a balance between being... Because you know, if you ever watch a movie that The Rock's the star in, you don't really care about the film you're watching. You're just seeing... But you enjoy seeing The Rock do shenanigans.
Yeah. Something like Skyscraper.
Yeah, or Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart, you know? Like, just some good... It's The Rock. In every single film The Rock's in, you're not watching the character he's playing. I couldn't tell you the name of his character in Central Intelligence, so I know I'm watching The Rock, though.
Yeah.
The worry with Black Adam, despite him being cast 15 years ago to play the villain in the Shazam movie, though he never wanted to do that, he wanted Black Adam to be his own thing, but that's because he's an ex-wrestler with showmanship. I think that this film basically strikes a good balance between being a Rock outing and a DC movie. Like, you get the joy of watching The Rock do his thing, but this is probably the first film, maybe bar Fast and the Furious or The Mummy, where I could tell you the name of the character The Rock's playing.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the name of the film, so...
Well, you know, for the rest of the film, he's not actually called Black Adam, he's called something else for most of it.
Oh, sure, his real name or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I could tell you that as opposed to, you know, what's the name of the character he plays in The Tooth Fairy, and you can't say The Tooth Fairy, you know? So I think it does kind of strike a good balance between superhero DC universe and The Rock fanfare. The Justice Society is nice. It features Ant-Man, Storm...
Atom Smasher.
Yeah, Ant-Man, Storm, and Doctor Strange, and Falcon. That's the cast. That's the Justice Society of America. Atom Smasher even has an eccentric old uncle who used to wear the suit before him.
Right, cool.
Played by the Fonz.
Nice.
He's only in one FaceTime scene, like he was put in a reshoot filmed in his back garden. And it's literally just supposed to be Michael Douglas playing Hank Pym. You know, the old man that came up with the technology who it's now worn by a young man. So it's literally...
It's Fonz.
Yeah, but it's literally just Ant-Man. Like, I don't care if the superpower is the same. The surrounding circumstances to him being the superhero is also very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Cyclone, she can whip up tornadoes. She's like Storm, if all Storm could do would be use tornadoes.
Okay. Hawkman is a dude with wings.
Hawkman is a dude with wings, and it's just Falcon. But Kondak, the country, is also just Wakanda, because they have a mineral in that country that only exists in that country.
Eternium? Is that what it's called?
I think so, yes.
I'm good. I know things.
Good, very well. Well
I don't need to
remembered.
watch the movie. I got it all down. Oh, you're missing out everyone's favourite, which is Dr. Fate.
No, I said he was Doctor Strange. Yeah. I actually by the way, I quite like Dr. Fate. I thought Dr. Fate
Most people do. I think you're not. That's not an uncommon opinion of the movie.
Yeah. Pierce Brosnan does a really good job. He even said on the red carpet for this film, by the way, that his big inspiration to pick up the role was watching Benedict Cumberbatch play Doctor Strange. Like, he said it on a DC press tour. It is crazy. And he does a lot of the same things Doctor Strange does, kind of almost blatantly. They just change the VFX art a little bit, you know, but it's the same practice, if you like.
But I bet DC fans are all saying how much cooler Dr. Fate is than Doctor Strange.
Honestly, DC fans have been kind of muted on this movie, to be honest. I think a lot of them are kind of annoyed that they think The Rock's hijacked it. Because this film hasn't broken even yet, and they were really relying on the Chinese box office, and there's some whispers coming out that it's just been banned in China because Pierce Brosnan was in an interview wearing a necklace that he was given by the Dalai Lama.
Okay.
So
that's fun.
There's a chance that there might be no Black Adam 2 because it's not going to make any money. I think
interesting because all I've been hearing is from The Rock is talking about how it's such a massive success. So
he's a good salesman. He's a very good salesman. I think it needs to make 500 million to break even. I'm actually not too sure on the immediate box office numbers at this moment in time, but I've been led to believe thus far that it has not made a profit because you got to basically double the budget that you made the film on because it has to include marketing.
And at least half of that budget goes to The Rock. So
yeah. So this film may make a loss, but it was made under the old DC premiership because oh my, lots of things have changed at DC at the minute.
I was gonna say that's next on my list.
So they don't really need to think, oh well, this is our mistake because this film was made before this leadership team came in, and if they were to see it something they wanted to carry forward, because whether this film's successful or not, at the minute, the perception of Dwayne Johnson is still mega movie star, so they might want to make more films with Black Adam as him anyway, because the potential is there, even if this film doesn't make the profit.
I mean, The Rock wants to be Black Adam more than anything else. I think he's proved that.
Yeah,
he's going to make this happen no matter how long it takes.
He's going to make this happen. There's some nice tie-ins to the wider DCEU. Like, I tell you, one thread, people say the DCEU, I think they're just calling it the DCEU now, finally. But something the DC Cinematic Universe always got a lot of flack for was how they're just all over the place.
Yes.
I think that it was unfocused, but I don't think it was like X-Men where it was ever really a massive contradiction. It always had like a weird unspecified thread that was consistent.
Sure, none of them ever contradicted each other. They were just massively different tonally.
Yeah. But one person who I love in DC movies, I think they are fantastic, and I'm happy anytime they show up, is Amanda Waller.
Okay.
I love that character. She's like a sinister Nick Fury. And she's in this movie quite a bit. Well,
I heard, yes.
Quite a bit, reasonably so. You know, she's in a couple scenes. And anytime I buy her. I completely buy the performance. And I'm just happy to see more of that character. And this film doesn't really do much for the wider DCEU just to introduce Black Adam.
Well, it's supposed to be the start of a new phase 1 for the DC universe, Nathan.
If The Rock was in charge, because The Rock had said like he'd be happy to advise Warner Brothers.
Didn't The Rock actually say like I'm in charge of the DC universe now? Didn't he announce that?
No. So what happened was I think Warner Brothers kind of knew they weren't going to do anything at DC Fandom or Comic Con or whatever it was, and The Rock just said, "Well, can I just rule it?" And they said, "Sure." So he went and basically ran the show, and he said he didn't want to be in charge of DC, but he said he'd be happy to advise Warner Brothers on whoever they appoint, which basically means he wants his man ruling it. Only for them to then announce that James Gunn and Peter Safran, who's the producer on the Aquaman movies, is taking over. He also has a big history of working with Warner Brothers on horror things. And, you know, I think that this is not the person who The Rock would have wanted leading DC purely for his interest, because I think his interest is definitely trying to mimic Marvel. Even though James Gunn, massive Marvel guy, I think he will try and veer away from the Marvel roller coaster.
Which is probably a wise choice.
I think it's for the best. I think 10 years ago, even 8 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, trying to compete with Marvel definitely seemed like the way forward. And, you know, if they really bent themselves out of shape, they could try. But I think maybe doing more adult storytelling in DC would be a way to define themselves away from the roller coaster rides that are Marvel, you know? Give us more the Batman, give us more Joker, and I don't necessarily mean give us sequels, though they are giving us sequels, I just mean more that kind of thing. And I'm perfectly here for Black Adam and a DC cinematic universe on some level, by the way. I'm totally here for it. But I think that maybe being less of a overpowering wave that is Marvel is probably going to be better. You don't need to make the box office of $1 billion with every film. Just make your films in smaller budgets and they will make more money relative to the cost, you know? They can be successful. That's why, like, Blumhouse make horror movies for pennies and make massive profits even if the film only makes, you know, 100 million.
The thing with this is, first off, I think it's wild. James Gunn's career journey over the past, 5 or so years has been wild. Do you remember when he was fired from Marvel for tweets? Yeah,
so that was a big heckin' mishap. Apparently Kevin Feige didn't want that to happen. Like, it wasn't his call. It was a big mistake. He's still good friends with James Gunn. When that was all fixed and he was rehired, I think the outlook was very much, you can come back and finish your trilogy. And we still have a good, within Marvel, good working relationship, but maybe after that you're out. Because there was a period in time where James Gunn was going to be Kevin Feige's right-hand man for dealing with other aspects of the MCU. But clearly after the firing situation, that's all going out the window from a business perspective, even if they're still good friends. I really never, because there'd been speculation that he would take over DC, but it'd all just been chatter. Like, people would say anything, people would say a million different names, and he was one of them. And I don't really think any of those calls were more educated or informed than the other.
I think he's an interesting pick. Obviously, I actually haven't watched his Suicide Squad movie yet. I've heard it's good.
It's quite good. I quite enjoy it.
James Gunn has a very specific, style to his movies. And I think some people might be worried that that'll be applied to all of the DC films. But I think he might be smarter than that.
I think he's smarter than that.
He'll let other characters be directed by people who are more appropriate for them. Like, I don't think James Gunn would make a very good Superman film. And we'll get to Superman, I'm sure.
Neither do I, actually, but I'm hearing lots of people say that apparently he wants to make one, and I don't want him to make one.
I think that would be a weird choice for Superman.
Because ultimately he is now the Kevin Feige of DC, along with Peter Safran. It's a two-man race at DC. No one man can meet Kevin Feige. And Peter Safran's going to be much more on the business side of things, and James Gunn's going to be much more on the creative side of things, and apparently they never ruled out doing directing stuff occasionally, but if you're the head of the studio, you reasonably cannot direct things whenever you like. You're too busy. You're far too busy.
We'll see. I mean, James Gunn is still running Peacemaker, right?
I think so, but I think that's because that show's already quite deep into its production process. I know they haven't started shooting season 2. I actually still haven't watched Peacemaker, by the way. But I loved Peacemaker in Suicide Squad. And I should say, actually, there's a moment in the Black Adam movie where a character shows up in the film only for a brief scene to do something. And it's someone who I believe was in Suicide Squad but was quite low down the ranks, but then really exploded in the Peacemaker show.
Right.
But for the level of the film, a character who died in the Suicide Squad movie, right, put it that way, would have been more appropriate to show up in the scene in Black Adam. And it was a weird moment where it really felt like the DCU had stakes. So I was like, oh, this would have been a good scene for that character, but that character, and you missed that character, you know? You're like, this would have been a good scene for that person, but that person's dead now. Oh, there's stakes in this universe, which is a whole lot more than I can say about Marvel.
Hey now.
Am I wrong?
I mean, I'm trying to think of someone who's permanently died. My memory's failing me.
No one. They have not kept anyone dead.
Tony Stark is still dead for now.
For now. I mean, I tell you what, Tony Stark gets a pass in the fake death universe because I think that's
too expensive to bring back.
No, I think he will come back, but I think that it gets a pass in terms of I won't critique it too much because the stakes upon his death were real. He didn't know that Marvel is a business that's going to resurrect the character. Tony Stark believed he was sacrificing his life in that moment, which is also why I buy the Wanda killing Vision moment as well, I should say. Actually, see, most of the deaths, I actually buy them in the moment, because it's a genuine sacrifice. They don't know they're about to come back. But there's something about the longevity of the death that kind of is more impactful relative to short death.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't think DC has been consistently around long enough for them to start. Actually, I say that. They brought Superman back to life, so fucking it's all on the table.
Yeah, but that's because you kind of can't leave Superman dead.
As far as comics go, DC is just as bad as Marvel for bringing characters back to life. They're both the same in that regard. It's just the movies haven't gone that far yet.
Yeah, well, I'm specifically talking about the movies. I'm not talking about the comics. But let's talk about Superman.
Let's talk about Superman. He killed the Witcher.
And I couldn't be happier. In the post-credit scene of Black Adam, we are met with a little drone flies down into the throne room in Kondak and speaks to Black Adam, and it's Amanda Waller, and she said, fine, if you don't want to stay in my prison, because he did go to prison briefly, it's in the trailers, they capture him, but he breaks out. He says, if you don't want to stay in my prison, that's fine. That country you're staying in will now be your prison, and if you step a toe out of it, I'll put you down. And he's like, no one can, bitch, what are you talking about? No one can, I'm the Rock, no one can touch me.
And then, of course, that's when Black Adam's traditional villain, Shazam, shows up to stop him, played by Zachary Levi.
This entire film, my god, I was like, why is the JSA getting involved? Call the Shazam family. It's the same power set. Call them.
It's the same outfit. Everyone can see that it's the same outfit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Shazam family are technically kids, but
does the world know that, though?
Their secret identity is still intact, yes, just call them. They've got another movie coming out next year, man. But yeah, so she's like, I'll call in some favours, I've got some tricks up my sleeve. And then Black Adam destroys the drone, because drones are not safe in a built-up area, Kyle.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then in all the smoke and fog, a CG man flies down in the smoke and fog, and then you hear the voice of a man that sounds awfully like Geralt of Rivia. But it's not him.
Different accent, though.
It's not him, because that, of course, is Liam Hemsworth. And step out from the smoke is the wonderful, the great, the endlessly attractive, the made-for-the-role actor Henry Cavill as Superman for the first time in a long time.
He's been in other things in the background in shadow, or not. You don't see his face, or various other things.
That's the thing. We were due a headless Superman cameo in this film, akin to Shadow CG Peacemaker post-credit, and
that would have been hilarious if they did that again.
No, so we were supposed to get that. We weren't supposed to get in it. It was the post-credit scene was apparently supposed to be shot quite differently. You know when apparently this happened, this post-credit scene was finished? Because we had the version of it that was headless with no dialogue, but you know when they put in the Henry Cavill stuff?
I'm assuming like weeks before the movie came out?
September.
Damn.
Word is, because there was a big rumour that Henry Cavill was going to show up at Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't. There's video footage of The Rock getting booed on stage.
Yeah, I think we talked about that maybe he was sick or something and they had to call off last minute.
Yeah, well he got booed on stage, and The Rock didn't like that very much. And for a long time, the old management at Warner Brothers really did not want Henry Cavill back. We've spoke about it before. I think Henry Cavill maybe not, has been maybe a difficult person to work with. He's quite, comes from a British military family. Maybe he's just not the most chill of people. Maybe he's a little bit awkward.
Well, we can maybe talk about that with The Witcher as well.
Yeah, we can get there. People didn't want him. But The Rock's ex-wife and current manager is also Henry Cavill's manager. So success for one is success for the other. And they've worked together for a long time. They're good buddies. And they were like, I'm Black Adam. I want to fight Superman. Apparently, and to be fair to The Rock, he does a really good marketing thing of giving respect to Superman. Like, you would think that, he was going to mark it up as like...
I wonder about this, though, because as I joked earlier, Black Adam is a Shazam villain. He's not a Superman villain.
Yep.
But I wonder if this is kind of an ego thing for The Rock, where it's like, well, I'm better than Shazam. I'm better than that kid. I got to fight the big leagues. I got to fight Superman.
Oh, yeah. So I agree with that. That's like, what I mean is like, you would think that The Rock in his wrestling nature would be like, I'm going to fight you puny Superman. I am The Rock. Mm-hmm. I'm Black Adam. But no, he actually, in the marketing for the films, he treats Superman, the character and the source material, with a lot of respect, which I really enjoy. I think somebody asked them outright about Shazam, and they were like, what's happening here? Like, this is silly. Where's Shazam? Because in the film, The Rock says Shazam a lot, because Shazam is also how Black Adam summons his powers.
It's the codes phrase.
It's the catchphrase. So, in the Black Adam movie, The Rock is saying the word Shazam a lot, and you're just waiting for Zachary Levi. It doesn't happen. They don't reference it. They don't even mention him, or any of them.
Bizarre.
Yeah. And The Rock has said in interviews that he doesn't want the perception of Black Adam to be like he is only a character in relation to how he's viewed against Shazam. And rightly or wrongly, The Rock thinks that Black Adam is a character worthy of being out on his own, and he has said that we will have an interaction with the Shazam family in The Rock's Black Adam movies. It will happen, but he wants to first build up The Rock. Guess so. He wants to build up Black Adam to be a character on par with Shazam in terms of they're not going to be compared to, you're just a villain of his.
I'm curious though, because this all came out before the James Gunn stuff, and I don't know how much James Gunn is going to lean into to Black Adam,
I think that when Dwayne Johnson says he wants to do something, lots of people still pay attention. And I think that a lot of this isn't purely creatively driven. A lot of it is also business driven. Right now, unless this were to lose so much money, but I think it might lose some money, but not so much money. They might still think The Rock is fairly bankable as a person, as a personality, and with some retweaks, and don't worry, we're going to fight Superman the next time around. Like, it'll make money. And again, as mentioned, Henry Cavill, the man made and just born for the role of Superman, has finally returned. I'm so happy he's back, and I think that this is a step in the right direction for the state of the DCEU, because I think for a few years they were working a lost, with the Snyder Cut thing, which, hashtag continue the Snyderverse.
Restore the Snyderverse, please.
Restore, sorry, yes, I apologise. The Air Cut's picking up steam, by the way, for the original cut of the Suicide Squad.
There's no way there's a good version of Suicide Squad, though.
So I disagree, Kyle. for a lot, but that's just because I'm intimately familiar with what everybody has said over the past, whatever it is, 5 years, and I couldn't really condense it for you right now because I'm too scatterbrained and it's been a while, but David Ayer said some things, and there's lots of things that have been released that weren't in the film, and apparently, like, you know how the film's basically just based around a Spotify playlist that would just ring out new charted songs every 2 minutes?
Well, I mean, they heard a line that was said in the film, and then they played a song that included that line.
Yeah,
basically.
Apparently, that wasn't David Ayer's thing. That was they got the trailer people to edit the full film.
Yes, I'm aware of this. Yes.
Yeah. So, hopefully, if we ever do see his version, which I don't think we will do, it'll be significantly more mature.
David Ayer does not have the same cultural cachet that Zack Snyder does,
which David Ayer has admitted himself. But he said that back at the time. Back just before even the Snyder Cut was confirmed. But I think now with the new management, and maybe he's good friends with James Gunn potentially. Maybe not good friends, but like maybe they know each other. So now he's like, this is a new push, a new push, a new push.
I wonder if this is a thing for fans where it's like, at most people must have accepted that the Restore the Snyderverse, it's not happening. I don't even think Zack Snyder is particularly interested anymore in doing it.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of dead. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean
maybe this one.
But see, if you were to look at the DC as like a canon, depending on what version of this Justice League you take forward as canon, which taking forward the Justice League is a bit problematic, Darkseid is on his way in the continuity of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they're going to have to confront. When do they could just sidestep it and pretend, no, he's not. Because he never gave a time schedule for when he was arriving. They could just say it's in a million years. We don't need to deal with that now. But broadly speaking, he's coming. So how do they manage that? Is Black Adam and Superman going to duke it out and then be teamy chum mates against Darkseid at the end of the movie? Because everyone in a Civil War situation needs to have a real villain that they can team up to fight against. Because that's the plan right now. The plan is right now that we're going to get a sequel to Black Adam that is primarily circling around Superman, and then we get a Superman solo movie. But
the way I see them going with this, based on the fact that they have a new Batman film, which everyone likes, which is not connected to the same universe at all, is I see them going in a Crisis on Infinite Earth's direction, where they have all these different movie franchises kind of combined into one movie.
You got to build up to that though, and my god, could you imagine Robot Bat and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker on screen with...
That would be so funny.
The Rock.
It would be so funny.
They just don't belong. Like, in... relative to the universe that is the DCEU featuring Henry Cavill Superman and The Rock's Black Adam, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is just a mugger. He's nothing. He's like the guy that Michael Keaton's Batman says I'm Batman to in the first Batman movie. He's nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that obviously Snyder wanted to set up an Injustice type situation,
which I would have
That's
loved.
what he was going for.
Evil Superman, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll keep going in that direction. I kind of doubt it, but they might.
James Gunn likes his video games.
Yeah, but Injustice is such a,
it's my favourite DC story.
I'm sure it is, because you're a big edgy boy.
So what's else on your list, Kyle? What else is on your list?
Well, we've gotten to the Marvel section.
52
just
minutes
past
in.
DC to the Marvel section. It's okay, we just got a couple of trailers, and the first thing I wanted to mention is I have watched Werewolf by Night now. It's pretty good. I liked it. It was very artsy.
Yeah,
I hope they do more specials. And speaking of doing more specials, we got a trailer for the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special.
Ah, yes, I'm really looking forward to that, actually.
Here's the thing. I think it'll be good because James Gunn is good at writing comedy. It does have a potential to go horribly wrong and just be horribly unfunny, which I hope it doesn't.
But it's introducing Kevin Bacon.
It's introducing Kevin Bacon, which was very funny.
You know the only reason I think Kevin Bacon agreed to do it?
Why?
Because it means that he can never play a superhero in the MCU.
No, it doesn't.
But like Kevin Bacon's a man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He plays himself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like David Hasselhoff can't play someone in the MCU now because David Hasselhoff's a person that exists in the world.
Again, it doesn't mean that. They can do it anyway. They talk about Star Wars all the time, and Samuel L. Jackson's in the show.
That's because in their version of Star Wars, Samuel L. Jackson doesn't play Mace Windu. Someone else does. Randy
I was
Jackson.
going to say Forrest Whitaker, but Forrest Whitaker's also in
Star Wars.
Marvel, so that doesn't work either.
He's also in Star Wars.
Can't be Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne's also in Marvel.
It's Randy Jackson.
You've gone to a person I don't know, so I guess.
Okay, okay, that's fine. That person's never going to be Marvel, so you're okay. I like the new logo, the Marvel special presentation thing. It feels very much like a business seminar, like you're getting ready to get pitched on something, doesn't it? Like, here's my sales pitch for why you should stay subscribed to Disney Plus for another month.
I actually, weirdly on that team, I think my favourite has become Nebula, just because we haven't talked about it in a while, but when we did our Endgame episode, we both talked about how great Nebula was in that film. So, I like Nebula. I don't know how she's going to fit into a Christmas special. But...
I have never been the biggest Guardians of the Galaxy man, to be honest with you. I don't know why. They're perfectly fine. I respect the creative ingenuity that James Gunn brings to the characters. I think he has a real vision for what he wants to do with these characters. He spoke about how deaths in these films will mean something. And for as long as he's in charge of Guardians of the Galaxy, nothing's going to be frivolous and stuff like that. Like, stakes are stakes, which I respect. But I just... I don't know. Sometimes I just find them wasting a lot of time. Like, I understand these films are supposed to be kind of funny, but I'm like, come on, the plot's happening. Stop making jokes. Keep moving.
See, that's how I felt about Thor 4. So.
Yeah, well, there we go. And Thor 4 arguably had less of a creative direction than Guardians.
Yes. We also got a trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
We did.
I like me some Paul Rudd. I think it looks good. People seem to think the Ant-Man movies aren't very good. I always quite enjoy them.
I think they're fairly inoffensive.
I don't see why people dislike them.
Meh. They're just... I think there's just nothing to them. Really. I think they're just sort of... They lack flair. I
mean, this one has a lot of flair.
See if someone... See the first two Ant-Man movies, if somebody just said they were directed to Disney Plus streaming... I think the implications of that from a business perspective would have been massive, but in terms of the quality of them, I would get it. I would be like, oh, I can see that. I think they're
harsh.
I feel they're very just made for streaming. And again, I enjoy them, but I don't go, wow, like, when can I go to the cinema to see them again? I just don't care. They're fine. They're good for a watch. If I do an MCU marathon, I would watch them, I wouldn't skip over them, but I would never sit and go, I want to watch Ant-Man tonight.
Well, do you feel that same way about this one from what you've seen so far?
It's a pretty good trailer, Kyle. It's a pretty good trailer. It's a pretty good trailer. I think this is the first time since maybe I first saw the volume in Mando Season 1 that I thought the volume looks good. I think in Mando Season 2, volume weren't great, and I think in Obi-Wan, volume was egregiously bad. The one big, the sweeping low camera pan shot when they seem to be in the quantum realm and it's like the sky and the tornadoes and the purple lightning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that looked really, really cool. And I couldn't see the seam of the screen, thank Christ. But something felt off because I know it was volume. But
See, I have this too. I'm glad it's not just me. I think this may have been triggered by Kenobi because it was so obvious in that show when they were on the volume.
Yeah.
Which was most of the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I can just see it now.
Yeah, So in the Quantumania trailer, the volume stuff, I can just see they're on a volume screen. But I think also visually it looked really cool. But the fact that it was on volume kind of took me out of it a little bit. But I still enjoyed what I was seeing. I don't know how that doesn't sound contradictory to say that I don't mean to be.
I enjoy the implication that in the last Ant-Man, Janet Van Dyne, she was living in the quantum realm for like 30 years, and the implication in that film was it was a sort of like wilderness Wild West where she was like killing bugs to survive and things like that.
Yes.
And then in this movie, it turns out there's just a whole civilization down there, and she was just hanging out in a city. Oh, okay. Well, it kind of lowers the stakes of your whole survival journey there.
Yeah, and on the day she got brought back, she was on safari.
Yeah, she was on a hunting trip or something.
Yeah, she was on a hunting trip.
She forgot to report back to Bill Murray that she was unsuccessful with her hunting trip.
And now Bill Murray's angry at her. Apparently, MODOK's in this movie as well.
I don't know where they're going to fit MODOK in this.
I think he's going to be like a tinkerer type, like B-level.
Okay.
A Toby Jones kind of guy.
I will say, Kang looks cool in this film. I'm still not sold on Kang, just in general.
Well, we haven't had any of them. Like, when was anyone sold on Thanos up until Infinity War, apart from showing up in occasional post-credit scene?
I guess that's true. I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
I think, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's clearly doing something very different from Loki, which I think is good. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah, Jonathan Majors is a really good actor. I think he's very well suited for this role. I think he's got the right chops to pull it off. I loved him in Loki as the one who came before. And I think that watching that episode with him and Loki relative to seeing what's happening now and going forward is really just sort of, you're like, they had a plan, even if Phase 4 has been a bit of a mess. I'm looking forward to see where Kang really shines, because we're getting, Kang doesn't feel like he's done much, but the next Avengers movie is called The Kang Dynasty. This is all about Kang,
I think it's odd that they're using an Ant-Man film to introduce him, but I guess we'll see how it goes.
I guess we'll see how it goes. People seem to be noticing things about rings in this saga, in the multiverse saga, even though this doesn't feel very multiverse.
It's all about rings.
Kamala Khan has the bangles, Shang-Chi has the 10 rings. In the Quantumania trailer, there was a lot of ring-shaped devices and objects swirling around.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just thinking that maybe these are all connected. But, these seem like fairly innocuous things. They don't seem like infinity gems. They just sort of...
At most, they seem like they were all made by the same magic blacksmith or something.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like there's a shortage of them,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder if people are just looking too much into this and maybe it's just an artistic theme for the phase, or if there is something deeper going on, Because I can believe there's something going on between Kamala Khan's bangles and Shang-Chi's rings, but I don't really think there's anything going on with Kang's architecture.
Yeah, it seems like, it's a ring with some runes on it. That must be the same thing. It's like, is it though? It's it's like a floating platform and not a weapon, Yeah,
yeah, and there's the city as well has rings that sort of orbit it or come out of the ground. Question.
Yeah.
Is the quantum realm so small that if somebody steps on that city in our world, it just doesn't hit it?
Yes, I would say so, yeah.
So where
it's
are
between the molecules?
Yeah.
Right.
So where is that city between molecules on Earth, or is that city between molecules a billion light years away?
I'm gonna say the answer to that question is gonna be, don't worry about it.
Is it a different universe that's actually scaled up to the same?
For all intensive purposes, it's a different universe.
Right. Okay. So the size thing doesn't actually matter that much. You're dimension
hopping. It goes so
hopping.
small that you end up in a different dimension or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So you're actually not in the same physical space size down. You're actually in a different space altogether. So I
have to assume so, because
a pigeon isn't Godzilla to these people.
If it was in the same if it was in the same space, then it would take 1,000,000 years to get anywhere in the quantum realm, because because you would be so immaculately small that you could barely move an inch.
To move across a table, it would take 50 million lifetimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it, Kyle. Right, okay, I'll try not to, because it's been on my mind. It's been on my mind.
Okay, Nathan, let's talk about Tales of the Jedi.
Oh, Tales of the Jedi, you say?
This is an odd little thing that just kind of came out.
It did kind of come out, didn't it? We were expecting somewhat of a bigger bit of fanfare. I really didn't expect them to dip all the episodes at once. That really surprised me.
Yes, it didn't come out with... I mean, there was trailers and stuff for it, I suppose. Maybe I just wasn't that excited about it.
Yeah, but I didn't expect them to drop all the episodes at once.
I guess it makes sense. They're short, you can get through them in an hour.
With the final product, I get it. I didn't expect that was what the final product was going to be, though.
Yes. I guess for those that don't know, they released 6 animated, basically short films in the Clone Wars art style 3 of them were about Ahsoka, and 3 of them were about Count Dooku.
And which ones did you prefer, Kyle?
The Count Dooku one's by a country mile.
Thank God we agree. Thank Christ we're on the same page. The Dooku episode's completely by a country mile. I agree with you entirely, Kyle. My goodness, the Dooku episodes were fabulous. I would have watched the full show. I would, in fact, though. It would be a little bit difficult to add in, because these episodes are like key parts of a theoretical Dooku show that you would need to like skip out these episodes because you don't just want to remake them. And thus, you would be like, okie doke, in this part here, we're about to see a time skip where shit happened. Please watch the Tales of the Jedi episode 1 for more. And then you continue with the show. And if you could just get around that, I think they could do it. It would just be annoying that at certain key moments you would need to swap show to get a plot point to then keep going.
Here's the thing. I have the opposite problem with these 2 parts of this series that meet in the middle. One is what you just said, which is I think the Dooku episodes are great and there's not enough of it. And then the Ahsoka ones are like fine, but it's because there's already been too much Ahsoka. So they end up meeting in the middle in this sort of bit where it's a sort of, these both shouldn't exist for different reasons.
Do you think the market is saturated?
I don't know. I think we have more to say about the Dooku ones, so I'll talk about the Ahsoka ones first, which is
fair enough.
My main issue with them is I think they're finely made and they're very pretty looking. The animation's really nice, but they don't tell us anything new about Ahsoka that we didn't already know and that hasn't already been explored in the several bits of media that Ahsoka's already been in.
Yes, that is true.
There's the first episode, which is it's the bizarre one, the one that stars her mum going on a hunting trip. It feels so disconnected from everything. Yeah,
it feels almost like almost like it belonged in Star Wars Visions.
Or like one of those like animated short films that play before a Pixar movie. One of those things.
I agree.
It's very odd. And yeah, it didn't tell us anything new about Ahsoka other than she had parents that loved her, which, okay, sure, cool.
Sure
Good
thing.
to know. But, like, I mean, the animation is really nice. I always love Clone Wars style landscapes. I think they're really good at doing landscapes in that show.
I agree.
In that series. So all the stuff with, like, the grass bristling and all this, which is a weird thing to focus on, I'm sure. But it all looks really nice. It's just, at the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, that was a thing I watched, I guess.
That was a thing.
Then the second Ahsoka one was my least favourite of all of them, which is she gets shot at by clone troopers a bunch.
I understand why that would be your least favourite. I found them all, I found 2 and 3 in the same level.
Maybe I dislike 3 for different reasons, which we'll get to, but this one, it felt like a filler episode in a series of vignettes where how can there possibly be filler?
Yeah.
Because it didn't really explore anything new about Ahsoka that we didn't already know. Like her training dynamic with Anakin is something that's been greatly explored in Clone Wars already. It felt like justification for how she survived Order 66, which I don't really need that explored in such explicit detail. Like, she survived being shot by clone troopers because she'd been training to not be shot by clone troopers. Wow.
Yeah, like everything else was inferred. We knew that she was of reasonable skill and talent, didn't we?
Yeah, it's not something that needed to be explored in such explicit detail. And also baby Kanan is in there because they had the model from Bad Batch and they just threw him in there.
Also, did you know that Obi-Wan had a mullet that he didn't have in the rest of the Clone Wars?
Yes, that was weird. Why did he have the mullet? This is past mullet era Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that was very strange. He never had the mullet at this era.
Did he just decide to grow out for a few weeks and it's like, nah, I don't like this actually, I'm going to cut it again?
I think so.
And then the third Ahsoka one is a very, very loose adaptation of the Ahsoka novel.
Which I haven't read, but you have. This is where you come in quite handy, Kyle.
Yes. Finally I have the upper hand, because I read a book. But yeah, takes place after the end of Clone Wars. She goes to Padme's funeral, which isn't in the book, by the way, that's new.
Yeah, I knew that was new, because people were talking about it like it's a thing for the first time.
Which, fine, and then she fights an Inquisitor and she one-hit KOs him, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool looking Inquisitor, if I may say.
It is. It's much cooler than how he's described in the book, so I'll grant them that.
I thought all the Inquisitors were kind of samey, with their Imperial uniform. This guy felt like he was a Sith Lord or something. Like, surely I would have thought the Grand Inquisitor was the main guy. This guy feels like the main guy.
He feels like he jumped right out of the Old Republic or something.
Yeah,
In the book, I think he's described as he's like a grey-skinned guy with white hair and red eyes, very traditional, evil, alien-looking dudes.
Right.
But this is the only one where I felt like the short format of it was limitation, and that's purely because I've read the book, where, like, I don't have a problem with them changing the canon from the books. We've discussed this before. The books are always a questionable continuity when it comes to actually, if they choose to do that again, then the live action is going to take priority, and then animation is second after that.
Ain't
and
that
then
the
games
truth?
are probably after that, and then books are at the very bottom of the pile.
Yep, you're not wrong.
So yeah, I figured they would change things. they just made it shorter is the thing. Because in the book, Ahsoka has kind of like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. She's cut herself off from the Force entirely.
I got that vibe from this.
Well, I didn't, because the first thing you see her do is use the Force to save someone, so clearly she hasn't cut herself off from the Force.
It's like subtle. It's like she's trying to hide away. She's trying to like not be a Jedi anymore. But like what people always spoke about with Jedi, about how the Inquisitors hunted them out, is that like their propensity for helping people is what exposes them.
Right.
So I got it. Like, you get me? Like, she's trying to hide, but like she isn't going to just let that person die, though that would have been a much more interesting take, but not for the Clone Wars, because I love everything Dave Filoni does in Star Wars. I think he does some good stuff, but I don't think he's going to make Ahsoka that grey of a character, no matter how much of a grey Jedi and all but name he tries to make her.
I'll admit, it's been a while since I read the book, but in the book, this is all a much more elaborate thing. It does take place with her on a farming planet, but she's working as a mechanic instead of out in the fields, which makes slightly more sense because that's a thing she could do in Clone Wars. That's
she is in like a mechanic's boiler suit,
Yeah, but she's just working the fields. That's fine. That's cut because they were short for time and they didn't have time to explore her mechanical talents, whatever. Right? That's the kind of change that I don't have a problem with. In the book, the way that all this unfolds is the planet that they're on grows a very specific kind of crop that's used in Imperial rations. And so that's why the Empire shows up, is because they commandeer the planet so that they can grow these rations for the army.
Right.
And Ahsoka just happens to be there. And some of the other people on the farm try to start a rebellion. Ahsoka doesn't want to get involved. She conscious them not to do it because in the book, she's more kind of scared of the Empire than she is. And, well, it's hard to tell because the Empire doesn't really show up. It's just an Inquisitor. But yeah, she's worried about acting against them and all this. She cautions against it. One of the people one of her friends that she farms gets captured by the Empire. And that's when she first gets involved, because she rescues her, and she does it without using the Force, I believe, because she hasn't connected to it yet, and she's trying to hide that she's a Jedi. All goes wrong, eventually comes out, she has to use the Force to escape, and then an Inquisitor shows up and all this, right? So it's a more, like, elaborate story with more going on, which I just prefer. I think it's more in-depth. And that's the one time where I feel like the shorts format of this show failed it.
I would agree that that is more nuanced and more interesting, and I think that is always a problem with reading the book first. This is something that I fortunately have never really had a problem with for me. People always talk at Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, people get really worked up about, well, in the books this happens. I always like to, well, it's not that I always like to, I've just fallen into this being the thing that I do, but I happen to also coincidentally believe this is probably the better way to do it for your own well-being. Watch the adaptation first, have that be your baseline, and then if you read the book after the fact, anything that doesn't happen in the show, you can just be like, well, this is all additional stuff. This is just additional stuff, more stuff, and this also happened. But the baseline is what the adaptation showed. Whereas if you do the
difference
book
with this one is, like, you could make a pretty solid movie out of the Ahsoka novel, but this is like 10 minutes. So you have to cut a lot of stuff for 10 minutes. And so that entire arc is really, really condensed down.
Why do you think Dave Filoni done that?
I don't know. That's why I say I don't know why they picked Ahsoka for this. There's many other characters I think would have been a better pick. I think you could have done some, and I'm sure they will do more of these, because I think these went down pretty well. People are talking about how
people
artsy and stuff they are, so they'll probably do more. I think they could have done something more interesting with characters that have been explored less, like Quinlan Voss, although then they probably adapt Dark Disciples, so that would be a bad idea as well. They could do something more with Qui-Gon. I know he's in the Dooku episodes, but he could have had a couple of his own, probably. I just think Ahsoka was a bad choice, because so much of the animated Star Wars stuff has already been about Ahsoka.
I completely agree with you, but all I can really fall back on is to say that I just love the Dooku stuff so much that I'm like, I don't care about the middling Ahsoka stuff. I just want more Dooku.
Well, yes, okay, we'll talk about the Dooku stuff, because I think there's lots more interesting to explore there. And I think I do see why they picked Ahsoka for this, because they're going for, which is weird for a thing called Tales from the Jedi, but they're going for, these are two Jedi who stopped being Jedi, and here's two different ways to go about doing that.
Yeah.
Which I guess is why they picked Ahsoka, but there's other Jedi they could have gone with for that, but whatever. So, Dooku ones, the first one is the dispute, or he goes to a dusty desert planet, and they're being oppressed by the senator who runs the place.
Yes, He may have been a good man at one point, but has become too corrupt by a career in politics.
Yes. Because Star Wars, it doesn't get political like that, you know.
Yes,
Never. Not political.
Never.
I think this was mostly good, except for I feel like Dooku jumped to dark side really quickly, which I think is just another consequence of this just being short and everything has to be condensed.
Yeah, that's a consequence of the short form storytelling, definitely.
It kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere.
I actually didn't think it was that short, because I think that even though it was only via beards, I think the show done a reasonably good job at conveying time, and I could see him being more tired with it.
I just think in that first episode, him coming out with dark side powers just felt kind of sudden.
I think it's clear from the minute the first episode starts that he's not happy with things already. Like, we're not seeing him at his bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Jedi Council as the best moment. I don't think the show, I don't even know if I would ever want to see that. I don't even think there probably was a time where he ever thought that. I think he's always been a bit of a reluctant Jedi. And I mean, as I've told you before, I'd done a guest spot on a Star Wars podcast once, and I spoke about Count Dooku.
Mm-hmm.
I find Count Dooku a very fascinating character, because he's ultimately a baddie. But I think that he had a lot of the right intentions.
Yes, I agree with that, and I think these episodes do a really interesting job of showing that.
Climbed up a tree, didn't know how to get down, stayed where he was, and things just got worse. Kind of, for a while, maybe outside of a structure, like he wasn't part of an institution, but more in a freelancey sense, was probably more of a hero than a lot of the Jedi. He
falls into the trap that a lot of the Sith do in Star Wars, which is he thinks he can outsmart his master, but he actually can't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so the first episode, it was fine introduction. I think that young Qui-Gon Jinn looks just a bit odd in the animation. I don't know what it is about it, but he just looks kind of strange.
Is it just weird hearing Liam Neeson's voice come out of a young man?
Well, it wasn't Liam Neeson's voice, it was Liam Neeson's son, right?
Was it? I thought it was Liam Neeson, because Liam Neeson done the Clone Wars.
Liam Neeson voiced him in the next episode, but I think in the first episode it was his son who voiced him.
Oh. His son does a good job.
The case.
Good for his son. Good. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, that episode was okay. The next episode was Dooku and Mace Windu, which I thought was a great episode, Are they episodes? I guess they're episodes.
I would call them episodes.
Yeah. Because I loved the dynamic between him and Mace Windu, which I'd never really thought about before. But I think you've made this point as well in your little guest spot, that Mace Windu is the sort of ultimate Jedi example. He is
the ultimate institutional Jedi.
Yes, he follows all the rules to the letter. And I think that comes out really well in this short.
Yeah, that's how he gets the spot in the council and all that, yeah.
I love that, like, even though they solved the murder and all that, it's, well, he followed the rules, so he gets the spot. Sorry, don't know what to tell you.
He felt he followed the brief. And he caught the killer, but he followed the brief. You caught the killer and didn't follow the brief.
And yeah, and both of these episodes are about like how the Senate is corrupt and it's bad, and you can see Dooku becoming more of a political activist than just a Jedi. So yeah, even though these are condensed, they're doing two things at once. They're showing his disillusion with the Jedi and with the Republic in general, and how these things are kind of connected. It's just, it's really good. Yeah.
Yes, it is really good. I concur.
And no, it's the episode after this. Yeah, the episode after this, where he's even older, even more cynical.
And he's starting to just straight out delete shit from the archive.
Yes, I love that, because it shows that, like, even during this, his schemes have already started.
Yeah, I absolutely loved, like, a lot of the artistic stuff in those scenes, like where he speaks to Yaddle with Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon goes into the elevator and Yaddle walks off into the light and Dooku walks off into the dark. And like, that's him just about to speak to the council. Like, this is happening during the Phantom Menace. It's happening concurrently. Just it's like it's like the side quel that was the end of the Clone Wars happening currently with Revenge of the Sith.
What's great about that is for that minute when they're having that conversation, I forgot that Qui-Gon Jinn was about to die, and then it does the hard cut to Dooku standing alone at the tree, and I'm like, oh shit, Qui-Gon Jinn just died.
Yeah, and I think like it's the same thing as like the last episode of the Clone Wars, where it's kind of synthy, sort of ethereal,
yes,
sort of disconnected from reality. Like, he's just in a haze. He's not really there, but like he's like something's finally gone in him. You know, like his appreciation for his old apprentice was maybe the only thing that was maybe still holding him back, even if he was already on the wrong path. He like reserved the right to retract. But now he's just, now he's gone.
I think it's funny that the internet has reacted to Yaddle speaking like a normal person, but I already knew that, because she speaks like a normal person in the High Republic books.
I knew she spoke like a normal person, but I don't know why I knew that. I wasn't at all... for some reason, I think that the trope of all Yodas speaking like Yoda would be really fucking annoying. Could you imagine like a discussion between two of them? And they're both doing it. They're both like a room filled with them, and they're all speaking to each other like that. You would want to go insane.
Look, speaking like a weirdo is not genetic, okay?
Yeah, Yoda was raised by like some monks that's how they do it, you know. Though again, I would never want to be in a room filled with them, because it would be insane. Like, it's just not. It's not normal.
I think making Yaddle a character that anyone cares about was pretty interesting. Well done.
In 15 minutes.
Voiced by
Bryce Dallas Howard.
I couldn't tell. I only knew that because she announced it, so...
Yeah, I only knew that because she announced it as well, though I did see it in the credits, but I saw it in the credits because I was looking at it because she'd announced it.
That probably retcons her original fate or whatever, but I don't mind about that one. I'm sure there's a comic somewhere that explains that she was killed by Darth Vader or something.
Oh, was she killed elsewhere? I'm unfamiliar.
Maybe, that may be Legends. I think currently in canon her fate was unknown until now, so it lines up fine. It makes sense. It's why she wasn't there in the remaining films.
Yeah, it's why she's just in the Phantom Menace and nothing else. Super interesting stuff. Sorry, I'm just kind of just bathing in it. Like, I just really enjoyed it. It was just so good for me. Like, I thought it was just really interesting.
The one thing is, I think it's odd that the fight between Dooku and Yaddle is so similar to the fight between Dooku and Yoda. Like, the location's really similar, the way they fight is really similar.
Yeah. I wonder if there's because this show seems to be quite smart on the visual front. I wonder if there was a reason for that we just haven't clicked onto. Like, surely they were doing it thinking, this is strange. I guess the setting makes sense, because that's where Dooku and Palpatine have their secret meeting at the end of Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same place, but it's very visually similar. It's a sort of brown
it's
warehouse, but with a big circular door behind it.
Like, they have, Yoda has their fighting Geonosis, but that's the place where they fight Yaddle is the exact same place where Palpatine and Dooku have their meeting at the end of Attack of the Clones in the old Rust Yards in Coruscant. It's just weird that the sets look very similar, so now in the animation they have to have that same fight.
Yeah, and I do like I think they use the synth music again when you see that Yaddle is following him and you're like, oh, well, Yaddle's gonna die. There's no other way.
Yeah.
As soon as you see that, you're like, well, where this is going.
That's where that's going. I enjoyed, like, you think she get crushed by the door, but somehow isn't actually crushed by the door, and then she opens it just to let in a last gasp of light into the darkness,
Yes.
and then she falls and dies anyway.
I think it's great because that pushes Dooku to be even more severe. Like the door killing her, it's like, okay, well, I didn't have to do it myself, so there's an out there. But since she does that, he has to go and do it himself with the lightsaber. There's no...
He keeps climbing up that
There's
tree.
no backing out at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, he's running up that hill. Yeah, he's got a problem, and I mean that's what a lot of Star Wars is just to do with the incompetence of the Jedi.
Yes.
It's like
which I always love.
Yeah, which I enjoy as well. Like, had these theoretical goodies been more flexible and able to adapt and be more realistic instead of being part of the institution, then they would be more able to help. But I guess the only way that they could be legitimate was to be approved by the government, which means making some concessions to not being so freelance. But then the people that really need help can't get help from the Jedi, who are supposed to be the peacekeepers. All really interesting stuff.
There's even more stuff like that, because there's so many points where they could have caught what was going on if they just done smart things. Like, if Yaddle had told anyone where she was going and what she was doing, then things would have gone very differently. But because she had also started to become mistrustful of the council, I think she said she'd left the council because she thought they were
she had
doing
said
the wrong thing.
Yeah, she had said that she actually had left the council, I think, after Qui-Gon died. Like, when she came to speak to Dooku at the tree before the funeral, had that conversation maybe been a little bit longer, she would have told him that she has left the council as well. But she never even told him until it was too late.
I think she does tell him, does she not?
I think she tells him after she's already found him having a meeting with Palpatine.
Oh, that's right, yes. She says during the fight, yeah.
And it's like, well, it's a bit late. Though she did ask Dooku to help her take down Sidious in that moment.
Yes.
Sidious was just... And I looked at the credits. That was Ian McDiarmid, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. Crazy.
Good man coming back. He done Rebels. It seems like after Rebels they finally started to get their ducks in a row, or after the first run of the Clone Wars, though they did get Christopher Lee and Sam Jackson for the movie.
I guess the original guy who voiced him in the Clone Wars died, right? So
yeah, and Tim Curry done a little role in it as well. As remember, they got Tim Curry to play Palpatine.
He wasn't as good.
No, he wasn't as good. So then after that they were like, right, okay, we're just not going to use Palpatine for a while. And then Ian McDiarmid.
What a man. What a man.
What a man. Love it. Love it. So happy to see him.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, I think the Dooku episodes were really good, really artsy. I would happily watch them again. I think it could have worked as a whole show, but as this, I'm happy with it because I think they were really well done.
Yeah.
The Ahsoka ones, they were fine. Whatever. Like, I really don't think they were bad. They were just kind of... They didn't hold a candle to the Dooku ones. So they just kind of fade away. Yeah,
they feel inconsequential relative to the Dooku ones. They're like they fit neatly somewhere in the Clone Wars seasons. You know, they don't feel step out big moments. They just feel like another day in the life of the Ahsoka joy fest that Dave Filoni has started.
And as I say, I think that the reason they chose these two Jedi is because they're two Jedi that left and different ways to go about it. But I don't think they communicated that super well, just because so much of that arc was done in Clone Wars already, and they didn't go over it. Like there's like a 3 episodes or 4 episodes arc where Ahsoka becomes disillusioned with the Jedi, and that's the finale of the 5th season. So they didn't recover all of that. You're just left to infer that that's already happened. So yeah, I mean, as we said after though, I would be happy to see them do more of these with different Jedi and see how that goes.
I think they certainly will. I think we might actually get some stuff to do with Mace Windu and Qui-Gon Jinn.
I think Mace Windu will probably get some stuff. Will they keep doing like Obi-Wan just because he's a bankable name? Will they do some young Obi-Wan stuff?
Nah, I want Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean, we get a wee bit of... You would get some Obi-Wan in it by virtue of being Qui-Gon. But I think there's a lot of Qui-Gon... Because, like, you could do some Qui-Gon Dooku stuff for talking sake, because they seem to be Jedi that are very much aligned in a lot of issues. You know, Dooku thinks that Qui-Gon would have joined him. Obi-Wan disagrees. But, like, they are the same coin, but just like how Ahsoka and Dooku are 2 ex-Jedi who went good and bad, Dooku and Qui-Gon are 2 Jedi who one left the Order and one didn't, but they probably agreed on most things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think doing some Qui-Gon stuff would almost be like a way to kind of get more of the Dooku stuff, but not as direct because they didn't see much of each other.
Yeah, and selfishly, I would love it if they, because Tales from the Jedi can be any era. They could.
Yeah.
I would love to see them finally go back to the sequel era and do a Rey one, just because.
Would it be set after she's Rey Skywalker, or?
Yeah, afterwards, and what she's doing after that. I don't think they'll do that because they're cowards, but they should.
Yeah.
And obviously, even more so, I'd love them to do some High Republic stuff in this show, just because I think that's the only possible way that we would actually see some High Republic stuff.
Did you see the thing that I had read that apparently Daphne Keane has been cast in the Star Wars Acolyte show?
No, I didn't.
You know who that is, right?
I don't think so.
That is X-23 Wolverine's little girl from Logan.
Oh, okay, interesting. Did they say who she's playing?
No, but probably a baddie.
Okay. Isn't the show about a baddie, though? Isn't that the whole point?
Well, it's about the Sith. It's about all the Sith. It's about it's about that line Palpatine does in Rise of Skywalker where he says, "I am all the Sith."
Oh, God. But she is all the Jedi, Nathan.
Anything else on your list, Kyle?
No, that was the end of the list. That was the main topic I had. That was the thing we could go more in depth in, and more in depth we went.
Well,
how did you find the structure? Do you want to rate my structure out of 10?
I give your structure. We'll give it a 7 because I feel like this has been a longer episode than usual, and I feel like when we shoot from the hip, we're quite quicker, you know.
Interesting. I'll take it under advisement.
Take it under advisement. Make sure for our next episode, when we talk about Andor, things to come, we have a better structure in place. Because I have so much to say about Andor, ladies and gentlemen, so much to say, but we will save it for next time. We'll do a full episode talking about it. We don't usually do hints and things to come, but I'm just telling you, next time you hear our voices in another episode, it's going to be Andor.